Why do you think it's important to celebrate the ministry of Absalom Jones?
Well, I think that it's important to celebrate his ministry because so often the giftedness and contributions of African Americans are overlooked. And they're overlooked because for some it is painful to remember. It brings about feelings of guilt and shame. And so we tend not to celebrate the contributions of African Americans because that brings up the history and how they have been treated. But it's important to do that work because African Americans have made invaluable contributions to Christianity, particularly to mainline Protestantism in this country. And so we need to lift those contributions up. The church would not be what it is today if it were not for African Americans. And specifically, I think we need to lift up Absalom Jones's ministry because he was such a gifted and faithful servant of God. He was a gifted orator. He could, by spoken word, help people to have an encounter with the living Christ for the first time. He could, through spoken word, have folks who had already had encounters with the living Christ to want to go deeper into their relationship with Christ, and then also go wider and broader. He brought them to recognize the importance of social justice as a part of their discipleship. He was a gifted orator. In fact, he was so gifted that there were rumors that that perhaps he had some kind of supernatural powers to sway crowds of people. That's, of course, because folks didn't understand the working of the Holy Spirit and how God uses people's gifts, and community organizer. He organized people and systems to do the work of God. And sometimes those people and those systems didn't have a relationship with God or not a meaningful one, but because of his administration, he was able to organize them. One of the pieces of evidence about his gifted administration is the fact that when the Free African Society was charged with helping to care for those who had yellow fever, he and Richard Allen kept copious records of what they had done. And they had done so many different things. They had helped to care for those who were sick. They had helped to bury those who were sick. They had helped to document different treatments that were done with those that were sick. And they kept meticulous notes of that. He was a meticulous and gifted administrator. You know, some of the work that he did in creating schools and creating insurance companies and being a real estate tycoon, all of those things point to his giftedness and how he used them for the glory of God, and bear witness to the fact that we ought to take pause and to celebrate his life. And the final thing I would say about that is that he also was a gifted politician that we need to celebrate. In order to gain, to buy his wife's freedom and his own freedom, he had to play a political game to be able to do that. And when those folks that were a part of St. George's Methodist Episcopal Church decided to go with the Episcopal Church, he masterfully addressed some of the political issues so that they went with stature in the Episcopal Church that other folks that Richard Allen didn't have in the Methodist Church, right? He was able to garner the political will so that folks, when the folks that became Episcopal went into the Episcopal Church, they brought some power and authority with him. So those are some of the reasons why I think it's important for us to celebrate his ministry.